Good morning to you. Good morning to you. How's your coffee today? Or tea or hot chocolate or warm lemon water or whatever it is that you really like? Mine's coffee. I'm just going to be honest about that. We are starting chapter 11 in our book, Redeeming Power, Understanding Authority and Abuse in the Church. And this chapter is called Redemptive Power and the Person of Christ. I can't wait. I'm really excited. Hey, if you have been enjoying this and you want to help others see it, if you hit share right off the bat, like right now, and share it forward, it tells Facebook that it should push it out further to other people. So that's always helpful if you want to. And also, as always, tell me where you're watching from and what brought you here if you're new. And if you have specific quotes from things that you're just loving underneath, drop them in comments so that we can all see who is, what stands out to each person. All right, so the redemptive power and the person of Christ. The Lord we follow, God incarnate, had to navigate secular and religious cultures of his day when he came to earth as a human person. He was so despised that both the Roman Empire and the Jewish nation, who hated each other vehemently, joined forces colluding to kill him because he would not bow to either of their rule. Miroslav Volf has said, the single most significant factor in determining whether a religion will be implicated in violence is its identification with a political project and its entanglement with those trying to realize and protect that project. Okay, let's parse that out and break that down just a second, because that's a pretty heavy-duty quote, especially given the political climate of the times. So, the single most significant factor in determining whether a religion will be implicated in violence is its identification with a political project and its entanglement with those trying to realize or achieve and protect that project. So, the biggest factor in indicating whether a religion is going to be violent and aggressive is whether or not it connects with politics and is tangled up with those who are trying to advance politics. That's what it boils down to. Some sort of political agenda. The temple leadership did exactly that with the Roman Empire. Jesus says, I do nothing of my own initiative with self as center, but I speak the things the Father taught me. And he who sent me is with me. I always do those things that are pleasing to all the local magistrates. No, to him, to God. That's John 8:28 and 29. Because Jesus never wavered from choosing love and obedience to the Father as the driving force in his life, he was a threat to both individuals and systems of his day, a holy dissident with a disruptive presence and disruptive words. His character threatened Rome's powerful ways: warfare, conquering, bloodshed, oppression. It also threatened the religious system, which exercised power and fostered rigidity, empty ritual, exclusion, and judgment. He who was the foundation of that system looked nothing like it. Meaning they claimed to have founded their system on God, and yet God looked nothing like their system. He opposed all that was contrary to the purposes and character of the Father in individual, social, national, ethnic, and religious life. He sat apart from those who stood together, and in doing so, his faithfulness to the Father led to his extermination, or so they thought. I've had people ask me where I stand politically. The thing is, I cannot and this is as political as I ever get, but I cannot align myself with a party because I see corruption in all parties. I cannot align myself with one side of thinking because I don't like being in any ditch. And every time we align with a party over principle, instead of staying aligned purely with principle, we're in a ditch. So I jokingly call myself a liber-dependent republicrat, meaning I believe in libertarian independence and being dependent on liberty, liber-dependent, and I believe in the republic that America was created to be with a democracy, a Republican, a democratic republic. Democracy, Republican, you know what? Yes, those things. It's too early in the morning for me to just really, really nail it down super articulately. So forgive me. But my point is, I see good things and evil things in all sides. And if our goal is to follow Christ, then we cannot blindly align with any political party, I believe personally, which is why I don't use my page or my platform for promoting or discussing specific political parties or political leanings or politics in general. Instead, I seek to present the principles that we should be aligning with, the principles of God's character, the principles of God's honor, the principles of treating others humanly with decency and respect, the principles of understanding and recognizing abuse, regardless of the context or the environment, whether it's domestic and intimate partner or abuse being perpetrated on a mass scale by politicians, so that anyone who is consuming the content from this page can begin to say, I will think for myself according to the principles that God has outlined, and I will seek to be like Christ in character and personality, and I will hold myself and my family and my community to that standard, not to the alignment of someone else's system. Be it a church system or a political system or a national system or a cultural system or an ethnic system, all of our systems, my own background included, have flaws, have sinfulness, have corruption, have foibles, have evil, and have good. So we extract the good. We align it against the principles of Christ and holiness and justice and mercy and right doing, righteousness. And we leave behind any alliances that do not come into balance with what God says about himself and his standard for us. Leave them by the way. Let them fall into the ditch. Anyway, there's my soapbox for the day after the inauguration this morning. And now I'm going to go back to talking about power and ignoring politics. What can we learn from Jesus as we traverse our own treacherous territory? We often think of such obedience as costing us. But when something other than obedience to God is our master, we are starving ourselves spiritually. When something other than obedience to God is our master, we are starving ourselves spiritually. The star of Jesus's way, the food for his soul, is God and God alone. It is not a doctrinal center. It is not a racial, tribal, or national center. It is not a set of moral rules. If we are to understand Jesus's mind, his heart, and his choices, we must know his Father, not the systems. Christ is explainable, not in terms of a culture, but only by knowing the Father. This Christ disturbs massive systems and turns the world upside down. We, as his people, are to be like him. This is also why I have absolutely no problem participating in and encouraging others to go ahead and turn systems upside down. Speak the truth. Speak out. Say what needs to be said. buck the system. Not for the joy of bucking the system and being an anarchist. No, because that is not the character of God. But speak the truth, and if it makes a system fall apart, your loyalty is to God, not to the system in the first place. If a system falls apart in the face of truth, it's not God's system anyway. It's become a false system. So, if that means that you have to go up against local church leadership, or your congregation is up in arms because you're speaking the truth, make sure it's the truth. Make sure that you are speaking it in the tone and the character of God, and then speak the truth. Let the system be a house of cards that falls. If it is not built on the rock, then it's built on the sand, and it needs to fall apart anyway, because it's doing no one any good. But your loyalty is not to the system. It is not to the structure. It is to God. It is to Jesus Christ and his character and his principles. The character of Christ in human hearts. Yeah, I know I'm being really not blasphemous. Heretical. I'm being super heretical today. But that's okay. Sometimes a little heresy, it might get you burned at the stake, but it can change the world. So we'll take it. First, we need to reiterate that Christ is building his kingdom in the hearts of men and women, not in the externals we have come to love, protect, and praise. See, I am no more heretical than Diane Langberg. And she's an icon, so. The temple in Jerusalem was a beautiful structure filled with God-ordained rituals, leaders of great knowledge and doctrine, and thousands of worshipers. Beautiful structures, a performance that moves hearts, theological brilliance and correctness, and large audiences are things that Christendom praises and prizes today. But the purpose of God in all those endeavors down through the centuries was first that his people should worship him because he alone is holy. People are made fit to worship him because of, not themselves and not the system, because of the Lamb that was slain. Second, God's people were to flood the earth with truth. Were to flood the earth with truth, love, humility, food for the hungry, honesty in business, welcome to the strangers, and care for the disenfranchised as an outgrowth of their worship. God gave his people power to bless the world. Instead, they were manifesting judgment, division, oppression, corruption, and disregard, all while they were slaying lambs and making money from it. God's people were so far from understanding who God was that when he showed up in the flesh, they didn't even recognize him. The external trappings meant nothing to God. So they had made a holy icon of the temple and the temple rituals instead of pursuing holiness in their hearts. So when Jesus went in, raising a whip and turning the temple tables upside down, it wasn't blasphemous because the temple structure no longer represented the character of God. It had become corrupt and polluted. So what he was doing was turning upside down the pollution and the corruption, not attacking the temple itself. Such externals are not proof of God's presence, let alone his approval, even when they have their origin in him. So just because something started from God doesn't mean that it has stayed true to its purpose as things wind down through time. Jesus says that what comes out of us from our center defiles us. Do we understand this? It is not the political atmosphere in our country that defiles us. It is not the rampant immorality out in the world that defiles us. It is not the pressure of expectations for excellent grades, more money, more fame, or many followers that defiles us. If such external things produced defilement, then Jesus himself would have been corrupted. He came here to this global death camp and remained full of the life of God. He remained pure because nothing unclean was in him. What did not exist in him could not come out of him. We cannot bear apples if we are a maple tree, and that failure is not in the soil, the rain, the sun, or the gardener, although all those things matter. The failure to produce apples resides in the nature of the tree. Think about a situation in which a Christian leader has been exposed for sexual immorality. What happens first? Usually, lies are told. I didn't do it. I just went in to help with the sex workers and I ended up caught in a sting. This response is a misrepresentation, a twisted telling of things, a camouflage. Such responses often use spiritual language. When that no longer works, what happens next? Well, yes, I did it, but I was depressed. My marriage is a mess. I was so pressured by ministry. In other words, what was happening outside of me defiled me. My immorality didn't come from within. But if we look carefully, we can see that what came out of the person when faced with exposure was deception of self and of others, and then attempts to convince us that they are actually fine, good, and righteous. They were simply sideswiped by external things. The external circumstances may indeed have been difficult, even excruciating, but somewhere in the heart was a hook, a lie, a coddled desire, so that in the context of those circumstances, the hidden corruption of the heart was exposed. Or, as Oswald Chambers says, crisis reveals character. Jesus says, hear and understand. It is not what is outside of you that damages you. It is what proceeds out of you. Nothing can come out that is not in. See Mark 7:15. We know that this is true in the physical world. A cup brimful of sweet water cannot spill even one drop of bitter water, however suddenly jolted. The jolt exposes what is in my cup. It does not create the contents. Hence, by their fruits we shall know them. We shall know who they really are by what grows from within. We know the contents of a heart by what comes out of it, not what is around it. No one is ruined in a crisis whose soul has not already been weakened by choices made in day-to-day life. We do not wake up one day immoral. Immorality is practiced quietly and in small ways over time. We are anesthetized by the opiate of self-deceit until the cup is bumped and we are exposed. If we are truly like the person of Christ in the kingdoms of our hearts, then what flows out of us will resemble him. Where it does not, we need to ask him to do whatever is needed in us for change to occur. People will know our source of life by the outflowing waters they taste. Boom. I'm just marking this here. No one is ruined in a crisis whose soul has not already been weakened by choices made in day-to-day life. We do not wake up one day immoral. Powerful, powerful stuff. I can't wait to go and read the comments. I can't see all your comments while I'm reading. So, anyway, tell me what you think. How does this strike you? What does this change for you in your relationship with understanding the dynamics between God and the systems we have idolized? What does this shift for you? Tell me what you think. Let's have a dialogue in the comments. Can't wait. Have a great day.